The cold morning wind whistled between the houses, carrying tiny snowflakes into the sky. At the city market, life was already in full swing. Vendors shouted out prices. Passers-by rushed to buy groceries. Some were picking out flowers, others argued over prices. Amid all this bustle, a thin boy stood out, wearing a worn-out coat that clearly wasn't his. His hands were red from the cold, his face covered with a light frost, and his nose and cheeks glowed like two tiny light bulbs. He slowly walked past the flower stands, pausing at each to admire the vibrant bouquets. His eyes lingered especially on the tulips, simple, yet so alive and delicate. He rubbed the few small coins in his pocket, as if hoping one more might magically appear. A miracle. "Hey kid, what are you doing just standing there?" a florist called out, adjusting a vase of roses. I want tulips," he mumbled softly, eyes downcast. "Tulips?" she laughed harshly. "Do you even know how much they cost? Look at your pennies." The boy lowered his head even more, trying to hide inside the collar of his coat. He pressed his hands to his face to warm them and took a few timid steps back. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. He was used to being strong just like his mom had taught him. At that moment, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the stall. Out stepped a tall man in his 60s, with a straight posture and a cold expression. His coat was clearly tailored, an expensive watch gleamed on his wrist, and his shoes shined perfectly. He looked around the market with calm deliberation, as if searching for something specific. When his eyes landed on the boy, he paused. There was no contempt or pity in his gaze, only curiosity and a flicker of something unspoken. He stepped closer, studying the child like one might examine a strange mirror of the past. "What are you trying to buy?" the man asked, his voice surprisingly gentle, almost fatherly. The boy looked up, a mixture of distrust and hope in his eyes. "A bouquet, for my mom's grave," he whispered as if revealing a sacred truth. "And why tulips?" the man asked, the corner of his mouth curling into a faint smile. "Mom always said tulips are like spring," the boy replied, his voice trembling. "Even when it's cold around, they bring joy." For a moment, a shadow flickered across the millionaire's face, as if something stirred deep inside him. He looked at the florist and gave a small nod. She quickly understood, gathering a large, beautiful bouquet of tulips, red, yellow, white, like little flames of hope in the winter cold. The man silently paid with a large bill and handed the bouquet to the boy. The boy looked at him as if witnessing a miracle. His eyes brimmed with tears. He clutched the bouquet tightly and whispered almost inaudibly, thank you so much." Without waiting for a reply, he turned and ran off, leaving small footprints in the snow. The millionaire watched him go, feeling a strange warmth rise in his chest, alongside a quiet pain he couldn't explain. He didn't know yet how deeply that moment would change his life. The boy ran along a narrow, snowy street, clutching the bouquet to his chest as if afraid the wind might tear it away. He could feel the cold seeping through his clothes, but he didn't care. One thought burned inside him: to reach his mother's grave by noon. Mom always said that the cemetery is quietest in the morning, and it feels like the earth itself listens to your words. He crossed a bridge, passed an old avenue lined with linden trees, and turned toward the iron gates of the cemetery. The rusty gate creaked open, greeting him like an old friend. The boy removed his hat, held it to his chest and whispered, "Hi, Mom. I'm here." Each step on the snowy path felt heavy and sacred. He knew every crack in the stones, every bench, every old grave. He came here often, but today was special, her birthday. He approached the familiar gravestone, covered with frost, and gently began brushing snow from the photo. On the black and white oval photo was a woman with a gentle, soft smile and sad eyes. Alex had always believed that his mom in that picture was looking straight at him, and that thought somehow made things easier. He placed the bouquet at the base of the headstone and slowly dropped to his knees. "Mom, I brought you tulips," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Remember how you used to say they're like little suns, so we don't feel sad in the cold?" He gently touched the faded remains of older bouquets, now little more than dry petals and brittle stems. Tears streamed down his cheeks, but he kept speaking. He told her how much he missed her, how often he saw her in his dreams, how hard it was to be alone. Meanwhile, standing near the cemetery gates was the millionaire. He had followed the boy without fully understanding why. His heart was racing like it hadn't in years. Each step echoed in his chest. A strange feeling stirred in him, as though something profound was about to happen. He walked down the snowy path with his hands in his coat pockets, eyes scanning the rows of graves. When he finally saw the boy kneeling at the headstone, he froze. Something about the moment struck him deeply familiar, haunting and tender all at once. As he approached, the cold outside gave way to a deeper chill inside. He raised his eyes to the headstone and stopped. On the photo was her, the woman whose face he had never been able to forget, no matter how many years passed. His first love, the woman who had once meant the world to him, and whom he had left behind in pursuit of business, fame, and wealth. Her eyes stared back at him through the glass of time, through frost and snow, as if reminding him of all that had been lost. He instinctively knelt, brushing a trembling finger over the engraved name on the stone. His hands shook. Memories came flooding back. Walking with her by the riverside, the way she laughed, the way she looked at him, believing every word he said. He remembered how, in a moment of pride and ambition, he had left her. He hadn't known she was pregnant. He had believed he left the past behind, but now he realized that past had never left him. Hidden behind gold watches and luxury cars, he looked at the boy who was still whispering softly to his mother. And in that instant something clicked in the man's mind. His heart clenched so tightly that he could barely breathe. "He's my son," he whispered, barely believing the words. He leaned in and the boy's eyes met his. In those eyes he saw something unmistakable. His own sadness, his own strength, even the same stubborn way of holding back tears. "Mom," the boy finally said, noticing the man. "Did you know my mom?" The millionaire couldn't find the words. He simply nodded, feeling his soul splinter. His strong hands felt suddenly small, powerless, like a child's. He wanted to speak, but the pain in his throat kept the words locked away. At that moment he realized all his wealth, all his achievements, meant nothing in front of this grave, in front of these eyes. His real treasure sat on the cold ground before him, holding a handful of tulips and a heart full of love. He slowly reached out his hand, cautiously, as if the boy might vanish like a ghost. But the boy didn't pull away. Instead, he looked up as if he'd been waiting for that hand his entire life. And in the stillness of the snowy cemetery, surrounded by icy air and sleeping trees, they touched for the first time as father and son, separated by years and by one fatal betrayal. The millionaire knelt in front of the grave. Snow melted on his face, mixing with tears. His hands trembled. His fingers dug into the frozen earth. He didn't feel the cold. He didn't hear the wind anymore. There was nothing now but him, the boy, and the stone etched with her name. "Forgive me," he whispered, head bowed. "I was blind, deaf to your love. I thought I had to become great first, that I'd come back to you powerful and rich. But you were left alone." He struck the snow with his fist, as if punishing himself. Alex watched in silence, not fully understanding the man's words, but feeling the raw, true pain of this stranger. The man looked up and met the boy's gaze. In that moment, words were no longer needed. A deep, instinctive pull of blood bound them forever. "What's your name?" the man asked, his voice cracking. "Alex," the boy replied softly. "Who are you?" The man wanted to say it, "I'm your father," but he couldn't. The words choked him. Instead, he reached out and gently placed a hand on Alex's head. "I'm a friend of your mother," he managed, each syllable tearing through him. Alex didn't move away. Instead, he closed his eyes and felt the warmth he'd been missing for so long. Those few seconds spoke louder than any hug, louder than memory. The millionaire slowly rose to his feet and wiped his damp cheeks. He looked at the gravestone again, memorizing every crack in the marble, every clump of snow at its base. "We'll come here again," he whispered, surprised by his own promise. Alex nodded. In his eyes, for the first time, flickered hope, the kind that meant maybe he wouldn't be alone anymore. They stood together in silence, facing the stone, as if listening for the voice of the woman now resting beneath. Everything around them stilled. The wind quieted. Snow stopped falling. Even the old crows perched in the tree said nothing, watching this reunion. The millionaire slowly embraced Alex, afraid to crush his fragile frame. He breathed in the scent of his hair, cheap soap in winter, but in that scent was something familiar, something real. The true wealth he had never known. "I promise you," he whispered. "You'll never be alone again." Alex looked up at him, eyes wide, filled with tears and a flicker of trust. "Really?" he breathed. "Really, son?" escaped the man's lips. And in that moment he let go of all the titles, all the money, all the masks. What remained was a broken father and a lost child finally found. Alex clung to him tighter. And the man felt the ice inside him begin to melt. Ice he had built over years of loneliness and denial. For this moment, for this boy, every meaningless year had been worth it. Minutes later, they walked together toward the cemetery gate. Alex held the man's hand tightly, afraid he might disappear. The millionaire walked slowly, looking back once more at the grave, saying goodbye, and silently vowing to begin again. When they reached the gates, Alex stopped and turned to the headstone. "Bye, Mom," he said with a teary smile. "I'm coming back to you with him. Always." The man squeezed his hand firmly and understood. He wasn't just a friend of the boy's mother anymore. He was his father. And he had to be there for every fear, every joy. He had to become a home and a safe place for this small but already so strong boy. They stepped beyond the gates, and just for a second, the sun peeked out between the clouds.